The first time my boss laughed at my dream, everyone in the meeting room laughed with him. "So," he said with a smirk, "you seriously think you can run a company one day?" The room filled with quiet laughter. Someone whispered, "She can't even manage this department." Another person chuckled. I forced a smile, gathered my papers, and walked back to my seat. That was the moment I made myself a promise. One day, I wouldn't work in that office. I'd own it. My name is Emma Carter, and 5 years ago, I was just another employee trying to survive at Harrison & Cole Marketing, one of the largest advertising agencies in Chicago. Fresh out of college, I was excited. I worked harder than anyone else. I arrived before everyone. I left after everyone. I volunteered for projects no one wanted. I believed hard work would eventually speak for itself. I was wrong. At Harrison & Cole, talent wasn't rewarded. Politics were. If you knew the right people, you moved up. If you didn't, you stayed invisible. My manager, David Harrison, reminded me of that almost every week. "Emma," he said during one performance review, "you're a good worker." I smiled. Then he continued. "But leaders are born. They're not made." I looked at him. "So, you're saying I'll never lead?" He shrugged. "You'd make an excellent assistant manager someday." Assistant manager. That was the biggest future he could imagine for me. I thanked him politely. Inside, something broke. A month later, the company announced a competition. Every employee could pitch a marketing campaign for a major national client. The winner would lead the project. I spent 3 weeks building my presentation. Every evening, I stayed at the office until midnight. Research. Design. Market analysis. Customer psychology. I poured everything into that proposal. Presentation day finally arrived. As I explained my strategy, the room became completely silent. People weren't checking their phones anymore. They were actually listening. When I finished, several executives nodded in approval. Even David looked surprised. For one brief moment, I thought I'd finally earned their respect. Then the CEO smiled. "Excellent work, Emma." My heart raced. "But we'll have David present this campaign to the client." The room applauded. I stared at him. "I'm sorry. Did I misunderstand?" The CEO looked confused. "David is more experienced. But it's my campaign." He smiled politely. Company decisions aren't always personal. They handed my project to David. He presented it. The client loved it. The company celebrated. David received the promotion. And my name was never mentioned. That night, I sat alone in the office long after everyone had gone home. The city lights reflected through the glass windows. I stared at the empty conference room where my dream had been taken away. Then I heard footsteps behind me. It was Linda, the cleaning supervisor. She had worked in the building longer than anyone. "You still here?" she asked kindly. I nodded. "They stole my work." She looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "You know why people like David are afraid of people like you?" I shook my head. "Because they know talent doesn't stay trapped forever." Her words stayed with me. As I packed my laptop, I realized something. If I stayed there, I would spend the rest of my life making other people successful. Never myself. The next morning, I walked into David's office carrying a single envelope. He looked up. "What's this?" "My resignation." He laughed. "Come on, Emma. Don't be emotional." "I'm not. I'm finally thinking clearly." He leaned back in his chair. And where exactly are you going? I smiled. Somewhere I'll be appreciated. He laughed louder. Good luck. You'll be back. This industry is brutal. You need companies like us. I picked up my bag. No. You need people like me. That was the last thing I ever said before walking out of Harrison and Cole. As the elevator doors closed, the first year after leaving Harrison and Cole was the hardest year of my life. I turned the second bedroom of my tiny apartment into an office. There was no fancy desk. Just a folding table, an old laptop, and a whiteboard hanging crooked on the wall. Every morning, I woke up before sunrise, made a cup of cheap coffee, and started emailing potential clients. Most never replied. Some rejected me within minutes. A few told me I was too small to handle their business. By the end of the third month, my savings had almost disappeared. One evening, I stared at my bank account. $612.43. That was everything I had left. For the first time, I wondered if David had been right. Maybe I had made the biggest mistake of my life. Just then, my phone rang. It was my dad. How's my favorite entrepreneur? He asked cheerfully. Within 4 months, her online orders tripled. Soon, I wasn't chasing customers anymore. They were finding me. 2 years later, my one-person business had become a real agency. We rented our first office. Hired 5 employees. Then 10. Then 25. I made one promise to every person I hired. If your idea is better than mine, we'll use your idea. No exceptions. Because I knew exactly how it felt to have your work stolen. One afternoon, my newest employee nervously walked into my office. I have an idea for the Johnson campaign. I smiled. Let's hear it. She hesitated. It's probably not good enough. I remembered being that person. I leaned forward. The only bad idea is the one you're too afraid to share. She presented her strategy. It was brilliant. We used it. The campaign became one of our biggest successes that year. After the meeting, she quietly said, "Thank you for believing in me." I smiled. Someone should have believed in me too. By our 4th year, Carter Creative had become one of Chicago's fastest-growing marketing agencies. We worked with national brands. Won industry awards. And finally, we were competing against Harrison and Cole. At first, they ignored us. Then they copied us. Then they started losing clients to us. One morning, Mia, my operations director, walked into my office holding a newspaper. You should see this. The headline read, Harrison and Cole faces major financial losses. I frowned. What happened? 3 major clients left. They're drowning in debt. I felt strangely quiet. Years ago, hearing that news would have made me happy. Now, it just made me think about the employees still working there. People like the younger version of me. Hard-working. Talented. Invisible. A month later, Mia rushed into my office again. You need to take this call. Who is it? She smiled. A commercial real estate broker. Curious, I answered. Emma Carter speaking. Ms. Carter, the broker said. I believe we have an opportunity that may interest you. What kind of opportunity? The owners of the Harrison and Cole office building are selling. My heart skipped a beat. I stood up from my chair. I'm listening. The company can no longer afford the property. We're accepting offers. After the call ended, I walked to the window overlooking downtown Chicago. Across the skyline, I could see the very building where my dream had once been laughed at. The same conference room. The same offices. The same people who had said I would never succeed. Mia quietly walked beside me. "What are you thinking?" I smiled. "I think it's time to go home." 3 weeks later, I walked into the same building I had left 5 years earlier. The same offices. The same people who had said I would never succeed. Mia quietly walked beside me. "What are you thinking?" I smiled. "I think it's time to go home." 3 weeks later, I walked into the same building I had left 5 years earlier. I wasn't carrying a resignation letter. I was carrying an acquisition proposal. The lobby looked exactly the same. The marble floors. The glass elevators. Even Linda, the cleaning supervisor, was still there. She looked at me for a second before her eyes widened. "Emma?" I smiled. "It's good to see you again." She hugged me tightly. "I always knew you'd come back." I laughed. I just didn't think it would happen like this. The boardroom was full of lawyers, investors, and company executives. At the far end of the table sat David Harrison. The man who had laughed at my dream. He looked older. More tired. The confidence that once filled the room had disappeared. When I walked in, his eyes locked onto mine. "Emma?" He looked genuinely shocked. "What are you doing here?" I calmly placed my folder on the table. "I'm here to make an offer." The room became silent. One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Miss Carter represents Carter Creative." David looked confused. "The same Carter Creative that's been taking our clients?" I smiled politely. "Yes." His face turned pale. The chairman of the board stood. "We've reviewed all acquisition proposals. There are 3 serious buyers." He paused. "After careful consideration, the board unanimously recommends accepting Carter Creative's offer." For a moment, nobody moved. David stared at the documents in front of him as if they were written in another language. "No," he whispered. "This can't be happening." But it already had. The signatures were completed. The contracts were finalized. 5 years after walking out with nothing, I officially owned Harrison and Cole. After the meeting ended, employees gathered throughout the office. Rumors spread quickly. Some feared layoffs. Others worried the company would be shut down. I asked everyone to meet in the main conference hall. More than 200 employees filled the room. Many looked exactly the way I had looked years ago. Nervous. Uncertain. Wondering if they still had a future. I stepped onto the stage. "My name is Emma Carter." A few people nodded. Others recognized me immediately. "I know what many of you are thinking. You think today is the beginning of the end." I smiled. "It isn't. It's the beginning of a better chapter." The room grew quiet. "I'm not here to destroy this company. I'm here to rebuild its culture. No one will lose their job today." Relief spread across the room. Then I continued. "But something is going to change. No employee's work will ever be stolen. No promotion will ever depend on favoritism. The best ideas will come from the best people. Not the loudest voices." For the first time that day, the room erupted into applause. I noticed Linda standing near the back, smiling proudly. As everyone began leaving, David approached me. He looked uncomfortable. "I owe you an apology." I waited. "I underestimated you." "No," I replied calmly. "You underestimated potential." He lowered his eyes. "I thought leadership couldn't be taught." I smiled. And I thought success meant proving you wrong. He looked surprised. So, why did you buy the company? I looked around the office. The same walls. The same desks. The same place where my dream had once been dismissed. I didn't buy this office because of revenge. I bought it because talented people deserve better leaders. David nodded slowly. I wish I'd understood that sooner. Before leaving, I walked into my old office. The small cubicle where I had spent countless nights working overtime. It was empty now. I gently placed my old employee ID card on the desk. A reminder of where it had all started. As I turned to leave, Linda smiled. Leaving it behind? I nodded. Some memories belong in the past. She smiled. And some people are meant to outgrow the places that doubted them. A month later, we unveiled the company's new sign above the entrance. Carter Creative Group. Employees gathered outside, cheering as the old logo came down. My father stood beside me, tears in his eyes. You did it. I smiled. We did it. As the sun reflected off the new sign, I realized something. Owning the office wasn't the greatest achievement. The greatest achievement was becoming the kind of leader I once desperately needed. Because success isn't about proving your critics wrong. It's about proving to yourself that their limits were never your limits. Sometimes, the people who tell you that you'll never succeed are simply afraid of watching you do exactly that.